Hi, and welcome to At Home Art Lessons with the Art Groupies, where we develop great art habits. We're going to be working with this guy today. His name is Observant Owen. Observant Owen is like that little tiny ant that walks across a piece of artwork and notices everything. So we're going to be working with watercolor and crowns, and we're going to be creating a koi fish. I'm going to use a variety of colors, and I'm going to be working with the first watercolor technique of this lesson, which is wax resist. So I'm simply going to be creating my koi fish using line, and I'm going to simply start at the bottom of my paper, and I'm going to use my crown and make the letter U. I need to press hard, so if you have to go over it a couple times, that's fine. So after I create my letter U, I'm then going to connect it with a nice little wavy line. Doesn't have to be straight. So voila, this is going to represent the head of my koi fish. In the middle of that line that I just drew, I'm now going to extend it, and I'm going to come all the way to the top of the paper and then curve it. So a giant letter J, an upside down letter J, and this is going to represent kind of the backbone of my koi fish. I like to make my art as colorful as possible, so I'm going to switch again with a new color, and I'm going to make a letter V at the end of that J, and this is going to represent my koi fish tail. I'm going to make some more lines inside my V, and then I'm going to connect it with little happy face lines or curved lines to connect to make that beautiful tail of my koi fish. Now I'm going to make two lines that kind of follow the leader with my original letter J for both sides of my koi fish for the body. So I'm going to start out wide and then come down and join the tail. Same with this side. I'm going to come out wide for the body and then come, and there, voila, is my koi fish. I'm going to use another color to make the fins of my koi fish, which kind of looks like almost the beginnings of a square. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the tail. I'm going to follow the leader with these lines, and then I'm going to connect it with a, almost like I guess it looks kind of like a scalloped line. And voila, there's one fin. I'm going to come over here and do another fin and repeat those lines again. When you connect the lines at the top here, kind of makes it appear that the fish is moving and swimming, almost flying through the water. Now, a thing that makes the koi fish recognizable is the beautiful whiskers they have. So I'm first going to add just two half circles to represent the eyes on both sides of that first letter U that we started. And then I'm going to come out here and I'm going to make a long wavy line and then another one here. And then I'm going to follow the leader and come to a point. And these are the whiskers for my koi fish. I'm going to do another little one. Voila. The next part of my koi fish is this fin that's going to go up top here on the back, and I'm going to simply make the letter S, and I'm going to cross over top of that original letter J. Kind of makes it look like the koi fish is moving, and then I'm going to put that scalloped line in again, just like I did with the tail and the fin. And I'm going to do the same, oops, for this one, kind of going in the opposite direction. And then the last thing I'm going to add is some beautiful scallops again here for the scales to show some texture. So I tried to show space by taking up as much paper as I can with my koi fish. And now I'm going to add some texture for my scales of my koi fish. Koi fish come in about 20 different varieties: orange, yellow, red, blue, and a silvery color or a cream color. They live for a long time. One koi fish in particular lived to be about 200 years old. So they can live for a very long time if the conditions are right. They get to be about 3 feet long. That's a pretty big koi fish. They are used mostly in ponds to decorate the yards or sometimes houses. If you have them for a very long time and they have babies, sometimes they will originate or go back to the original color that their ancestors were, which is like a dull brown color. They're not very good to eat. That's why they're usually used to decorate and become like an ornament of people's houses in Japan. They were first used in the rice paddies, and then they started to have them become kind of like pets. So I'm not going to really do much in my water because I want my fish to be what is the most important. So I'm just going to have fun here and just do some swirls for my background of my water. Just fill in some space. Could use a couple different colors, some different sizes. But my background's going to be pretty subtle compared to the design in my fish. And for my background, I'm going to be using a very simple wet into wet technique. So I used the wax for my koi fish, which will resist the watercolor. That's what we call a wax resist. I'm now going to use a watercolor technique called wet into wet, and I'm first just going to just use regular water, and I'm just going to work in sections because I don't want to wet my whole paper. And I'm going to start with the background because, like I said, my fish is what's important. So my background is just going to be some simple blues that I'm going to add, and I just simply wet it first with water, and then I can just dab different blue colors and other colors, maybe some greens, to make my water, and it kind of blends naturally, and it just makes a very beautiful natural blended background. So I'm going to again work on making a very simple background by doing a wet into wet technique. I'm going to use regular water to wet the background, and then I'm just going to simply just dab in some color to make for a beautiful but very simple background. Kind of looks complicated, but that's the watercolor technique, doing all the work. Add in some of the greens. some of this space, moving the color around. So again, I'm not wetting the entire thing all at once. I'm working in sections. I'm going to try to use a contrasting color for my koi fish to really make it pop. So the complementary color of blue is orange, which I just put in my water, didn't mean to. I'm going to put orange all over my fish because that's the complementary color of blue, and that'll really make my fish pop and show some contrast. So again, wet into wet watercolor technique by just dabbing some colors on the wet background. Trying to stay away from the fish so my colors don't blend in there. If they happen to blend in, no worries. You can just grab a paper towel or a tissue and kind of blot it up. It's another watercolor technique. So my last bit of background for my koi fish. And voila. So now I'm ready for my koi fish. I'm going to use what we call a double loading technique. So I'm going to take my paintbrush. I'm going to wet my watercolors. I'm going to use a light orange. I'm going to use a light orange here, and I'm going to also use a red. And I'm going to double load my paintbrush. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to put one side in one color and one side in the other color. And when I paint the scales, it will make like a more natural blended look to make it appear like some of those scales are glistening. And it just makes for a nicer color than if you just used one color. Kind of gives it some depth. And you can see as the watercolor dries, you can still see that crown showing the scales of our beautiful koi fish. To the other side as well. So this is a double loading technique. And I'm just tickling the paper, not really scrubbing. You only really want to scrub and put pressure on your paintbrush when you are washing and getting a new color. But we just tickle the paper. You can always go back in with some more color to make it darker. I'm going to use a paper towel to clean that up. And this is a blotting technique, which can also give some nice texture in the background, but I'm just going to blot up that color that got loose. I'm going to add some yellow now for my tail. And that crown just comes on through, making that beautiful texture of the fins, the tail. And voila, my koi fish. So Observant Owen was our art groupie that we worked with this project. We're creating a beautiful koi fish using simple lines. We tried to show space by using up all the paper, and we did 2 different types of watercolor techniques, wet into wet and double loading. So thanks for joining me. Hope you had fun.